Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here to talk all things round 17 with my team. But before we get into that, as always, continue to support this podcast by checking us out on all our media platforms. Supercoach Insider 100 and Swiz 26 to contact us via Twitter, and then we've got the YouTube, TikTok, SoundCloud, Spotify, all those ways to listen and watch our podcasts. Thank you to the ongoing support of our sponsor, Splash Vodka, and all the support of the community. We really do appreciate it. I'm talking about footy and podcasts. We've got another bit of a side project going, well, I do at least. Fancast or Fancast AFL. You can find us on YouTube, I believe Spotify as well. So the boys at Centre Bounce with the boys over at Hawk Talk, Saints TV, I think it is, and a couple other great channels have been getting together to talk footy, a bit like a Talking Footy / Footy Classified, but a non-mainstream media version of it. So if you've got any topics or questions you like that, just hit me up and I'm sure we can answer it. So we'll be getting together once a week to discuss all things footy, and the latest episode will be coming out, I believe, today. So definitely, if you can, jump on there, like and subscribe that, and watch if you enjoy just listening to footy. All right, for me last week, 2473, which dropped my ranking down just a little bit, still in the top 1,979. The disappointing parts was all week I had in Houston and Libba, and we ended up going Ryan and Butters. Unfortunately, Houston, with that match-winning goal, apart from that, was playing really well, but the big boost at the end, I think he got about 30 points for that, got him to about 160. And Ryan, who was flying, and he was 51 at quarter time, only finished with a 97, so that 60 points was a bit costly. I think actually Houston won 56, so yeah, it was about 59 points in the end. So that was very disappointing from my point of view. The Libba vs Butters one I can live with, so the decisions was, I wanted to wait to see what happens with Mills. Now, we knew with Warner out, there was going to be a boost for Mills' CBAs, which was naturally going to happen, but also it's going to come down a little bit to results. The Swans do have a couple of winnable games coming up soon, so I was a bit mindful of that, thinking, well, there's still an outside chance of making finals if they can get some wins coming up. You just never know, so they've got some really good players. The away game to the Tigers, home game against the Doggies, away games to Freo, Essendon, and even the Giants, home games against the Sun. So those sort of matches, a lot of them are 50-50, but they could win their fair share of them, get on a run and put themselves in contention for finals. So I thought if Mills is back playing well, which he definitely did, he was tackling, he was getting around the ball. It was a big part of the reason why they should have won that game, but definitely, part of the draw there. So really comfortable with bringing in Mills. So that meant I had to make a decision of what I wanted to do with my midfield. As much as I wanted Libba looked so good again on the weekend. Bit of a neat, I wouldn't say tweak, it's more cramping, I think, through that, or a corky. So I had to just sort of deal with that on the weekend, but he was flying. So I would have loved to get Libba in there, but Butters naturally gave me the flexibility that I needed for my team to be able to loophole forwards and mids, and the ability to bring Mills in at that beautiful price at 403, 404. So yeah, that was the decision there. The problem was I really wanted Houston. I wanted Houston over Ryan. As good as Ryan, I think they were going to be pretty similar on the run home, but that boost of a goal at the end did really bump Houston up. Fantastic player. I was there at the Essendon Port game. He played brilliantly. So anybody who brought him in, which I think Chris did, you'd be really happy as an owner because he's really lifted his game. Probably not that sort of traditional halfback, gets around the ball a lot and can win his own footy. You'd be very proud of an owner there. As I said, Ryan was looking great for a quarter, so I wasn't too disappointed, but he did obviously slow off in that second and third terms. The problem was, because Ryan was 18k cheaper than Houston, I wanted to make sure I could still get Mills. I was very worried that with Harvey Harrison being sub, that there was the potential that he could get on late and score a sub 10, which he ended up doing, scoring at 0. So he did go up a little bit of cash, but not that much. So I was sort of factoring that and then thinking, well, if Johnson here only goes, say, or maybe a 40, which is in the scope for Johnson, especially against up a really good doggies midfield. I might not have the money to actually go and get Mills. So I played it safe, went and got Ryan. And in the end, Johnson comes out and scores the 70. And as you can see there, the 32,000 cash, got that with absolutely ease. But I was a bit worried there with, I think maybe worst case scenario with both players. Maybe that I think it was about an 18k difference. So I think Johnson would have, might have even had to score a little bit less than that. But if he had a poor game or got subbed off, I was like, well, this could really muck up what I want to do with my team going forward. So played it safe, missed out on some points. It's unfortunate. Just hopefully Ryan can continue to perform well. He was averaging 110 coming that game. We know he's got the ability to pump out big scores. So, I'm not disappointed opening him. It just unfortunately didn't work out last week. However, things may work out this week for me because the news here on a Tuesday is Josh Dunkley did not train. We saw him get subbed off last week, and he is most likely to miss West Coast, which was always going to be this kind of the case when he got subbed off last week, that this was a higher chance playing the Eagles, and we saw the best of the Eagles last week against the Saints. And sometimes you do get that trigger hit after you've had a thrashing like that, come back and the rebound. It was always going to be a danger game for the Saints if the Eagles were going to show something. I think now, off the 6-day break, from Brisbane well rested, I think we could be looking at another thrashing this week for the Eagles. So the risking Dunkley when they've got bigger fish to fry this year, I think it's probably going to be the safe move. And because now I've brought in Butters, it does allow me to have a loophole. So those who have Sheldrick are looking a bit better. Now, if Sydney have players come back, his role could change, but that kid looks like an absolute ball and one for the future. And one, for whatever reason, people haven't picked up on their keeper leagues, I'm sure he's gone, but I'd be definitely trying to get hold of him. So if you've got sort of him as cover, it's going to take, it's not going to hurt you as much by with Dunkley out. And the great thing is Sheldrick playing on a Thursday night, you've got the ability to potentially loop a couple of players. Other people can be relying on, say, guys like Marriage. So he had a great game, 76, but naturally the Saints and Eagles game was a close game, and he got heavily involved in that. If Brisbane were to do a number on West Coast, his impact might be quite low, like we saw against the Swans the week before. So it's not sort of what you want to be hoping on. Like you'd be hoping, again, Marriage sort of goes 50 plus. And that won't hurt people as much. So for me, I've got the ability to loophole Darcy Cameron into Marriage. Hopefully Cameron bounces back. Had a poor game the other day, but that was always a possibility against Jared Witch, who's one of the best ruck in the league. Darcy Cameron and English are kind of very different ruckmen. We know English gets around the ball a lot more, but doesn't win as much hit out. So we're hoping Cameron, especially with DeGoey back in the side, can get some of those +5 hit outs to advantage, which will naturally boost his score. So that's what I'm hoping there. Cameron comes back, boosts back about 9,500, and get to take that. Dunkley misses and play, and other people out there, either have rookies or don't have the cover or have to burn whatever little trades that they have left to sort of cover that. But we talked about a couple of weeks ago about trading Dunkley. In a perfect world, that's the last thing you want to do. It was more if you were in a situation where you had no cash generation on the bench. So, say a Dunkley and a rookie could get you a Mills and a Himmelberg or something like that, if it meant finishing your team. But that was only in cases where I had seen some teams with no cash gen at all. So, in a perfect world, you want to be keeping Dunkley. It's most likely just going to be the 1 week. And if they were playing probably, a Collingwood or a Port Adelaide, he'd be playing this week. But against West Coast, they're not going to risk it. So, this is where I was talking about the 23rd and 24th player coming into my team. Gives me a lot of flexibility and protection going on the run home, and not so much like, unless it's a long-term injury, where I've got the one trade up my sleeve, and touch wood, hoping for not too many of them. But at least with the 1 week injuries, I can cover them. So Sicily's still out there for another week, so I'm using Chester as the backup there in case we get any injuries there. Charlie Tunstall actually dominated the VFL this week, but we know he's done that a few times, but back from his concussion. And after the Suns have been smashed, there is a chance that he could get another look in for those people who own him. Now, there's the possibility there, because if you've got Dunkley and you've got a say another mid forward on field. Some people have got Rosie and Butters still in their midfield. You might have to swap that around and take somebody's score if you've got like a Johnson or if Constable plays or something like that to cover Dunkley this week. So there is some options. The perfect world, and this is, like as I said earlier, a couple of weeks ago when I was looking at doing these plans, don't want to wish injuries on anyone, but I would love another 1 week injury to a very popular player in that midfield or forward line. Well, actually not really the forward line, but actually not this week because Sicily's still out. So probably the next week would be good, or the week after, a couple when you got 23rd and 24th, I'd probably put 2. But even this week, even having marriage, I think if there was 2 injuries go down the forward line, there's going to be a lot of people who aren't going to be able to cover 2. So maybe that would still give me a bit of a leg up. So this was the whole idea around it. So the second player I have brought in is, I think it's Bennett's from Hawthorn, who's a 102k player. With that 32k, I've got the ability. I could have gone up maybe to like a jury or something like that, but I actually wanted a player who's a non-playing player who's going to play late in the rounds coming on the home straight. So Roberts from Sydney. Sydney do have a mixture of early games and late games. So I really wanted a mid-forward who I've got the ability to loophole because, Cameron there in the forward line, but also if I was to use, as you can see, I've got Mills there on the bench there. Now, if Dunkley was playing, if Mills hadn't scored well, and Darcy Cameron had, I've got the ability to say put Taranto or Rosie or Dunkley into that midfield to cover Mills' poor score. So that's why it's sort of set up there. And Bennett's playing late most weeks. Will able to help that situation. So I like to try to I was looking between Hawthorn and Fremantle players, and Hawthorn seemed to have the more Sunday games. So that's why I've got him as the 102k rookie coming on field. So I'm pretty happy with my side coming on the run home. It would be nice to have sort of kind of Petrarca or Libba in there. I'm not as much on Clary just because coming back from that injury, I'm sure he'll come back and perform quite well, but there are some question marks on there. And I feel like they're still just trying to get him right so they can tackle finals. So there's a potential that he could still miss another week, which is I think that comes out to about 7 or 8 weeks now. So it's really not good for people who are owning him. That's kind of where that's at. And with Sicily coming back next week because that's a suspension and not an injury. Will Day, so there was a poor score from him last week, but then the ability to able to loophole him or just cover my forwards or not my forwards, my back line or midfield any given week is going to be handy. So overall, fairly comfortable with that. At the moment, vice captain is Neil, just naturally playing West Coast, and especially with Dunkley out. He's likely to cop some attention, like Sinclair did cop some attention last week, but managed to shake that off for the second half. I think it was against a Neil, so I'll back Neil to do the exact same thing. And my captain at the moment is on Butters. I'm sort of debating between Butters and Rosie, but it's more because Rosie had a better game last week. I think maybe Butters has the better game this week up against the Suns. We saw what some of those players midfielders done, so I'm pretty confident with that. The only other one maybe is Dacos but it's the Friday night game. But he's just toweling up everyone at the moment, so I think he's possibly a good shout. I don't like captaining sort of your more vice captain options, say, for example, Stewart against North Melbourne, and Sunday games are really starting to hurt. I don't know what is it with Sunday games, especially Rory Laird. So him up against the Bombers, I'm trying to stay away from. So, overall, fairly happy with how things are shaping up. In regards to draft, we haven't had a lot of draft talk lately, but it's coming up to the end of the year for a lot of draft leagues. They have some people have shorter seasons because you only play each other once, and you might have 12 or 14 teams depending on how you set up. But in particular, I wanted to mention keeper leagues. So a lot of leagues, and this depends on each league, and you have your different rules. But a lot of leagues have for keeper coming into finals, they have waiver lockouts for teams who are out, or even if you're in finals, they reset their sides back to what they were pre-finals, so allow it to be fair for everybody about grabbing the waivers. So as I said, different leagues have different rules. So if you are out of contention for finals, or even if you are in contention and you've got a couple of bench spots to fill, go through the waiver list and try to target players that may have been dropped off by people for different reasons, maybe because they've been trying to win games and they've dropped players with injuries. A good example for that, I was going through a keeper league this morning, and Tom Lynch from Richmond was there. Now, obviously got a bit of a soft spot being a Richmond supporter, but in this particular league, for example, we've got 14 players. So if you think about the second best forward, that's the top 28 forwards. I think Tom Lynch next year definitely falls into that category. So, picking up an F2 off a waiver wire for next season, I think is very handy. So just have a look at that, because there are a few players, and it might not even be like your top players, but might be a rookie that you're looking at next year. There's a couple of guys who have, for example, your Darcy Wilmons, or, I think your Sheldrick's gone, but maybe your Devon Robertsons, or players like that who could potentially make a bigger impact for next season. Sitting there, even some of those Saints players, Windhagen is one that gets dropped. It seems to get waived every couple of weeks, so maybe have a look at someone like that. That might be somebody that you're starting off in the season. If you're in deep leagues, definitely consider picking up one of them. It'd be nice to stash away, but also take into account how many people you keep in your league. So that's also important. So it might be a good opportunity to do some trading, especially if you're playing somebody who's going to be in finals. They might want a little leg up, and you might be able to pick up a couple of young rookies coming through that they might not value as much or need as much as at the moment to help them win their league and take that opportunity. I know that's something like Ben and I had that discussion last year, and he was trying to win, and then offloaded a lot of those players at the end of this after he'd won the premiership to then rebuild now that he'd got the flag. And so there's different ways to play drafts. So it's just something to consider if you're especially in those keeper leagues. Outside of that, as I said, continue to support us. Check out my AFL Fancast podcast. If you've got any questions, send them through. Reminder again, Thursday night footy this week. There'll be most weeks will be happening Thursday night footy. I know a few people got caught out last week, and be very mindful of your either your emergency and loopholes, or you just your vice captain. I know a few people got caught out again, straight captaining up people, which I think a couple had straight up captain Dunkley last week just by accident, and then you get the situation where you get the 107 and it ends up being really crucial and costing you points. So just be very mindful. Check your team, especially if you go because a lot of people do their trades say Sunday, Monday when Supercoach opens, and you go reverse trade coming into the day, and you forget about one or two players that you've accidentally had on the bench the previous week because you were loopholing players. So just be very mindful of that. Outside that, have a great week, and we will talk soon.